Good morning, day 12 of our 22 days through Isaiah. Today we read chapters 34 to 36. Chapter 34 is a culmination of all of the judgment descriptions that Isaiah has been making, and this is the judgment on all nations that is coming. And it is terrifying in how Isaiah describes it, and it is universal. The entire earth, all the nations of the earth, bathed in blood because of the sword of the Lord. So much bloodshed that, in fact, the mountains shall melt with their blood. The soil is being eroded by rivers of blood at this great slaughter of the Lord. It is a fearful scene and a picture of the final judgment that will take place. And the old earth is left completely desolate as a wilderness. And yet then at the beginning of chapter 35, there's this immediate promise of fruitfulness. The wilderness and the wasteland shall be glad for them. For who? And the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice. Here's the very earth itself that had been laid waste as a wilderness, somehow being renewed, and it is rejoicing, the very creation. Even with joy and singing, the glory of Lebanon shall be given to it. The excellence of Carmel and Sharon, those were very fruitful parts of Israel. So this is metaphorical language to picture the earth being renewed. The excellence of Carmel and Sharon, they shall see the glory of the Lord, the excellency of our God. So the creation itself is displaying the glory of God and the excellence of our God. And we know from the New Testament, Paul talks about how the heavens declare that's David, how the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. But Paul talks about how God has displayed his being and his power through the things that he's made. And here the creation itself is rejoicing at the coming of a people, them, whoever them is, and that these people will see in the renewed creation, they will see the glory of their God. And then there is this charge: strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are fearful-hearted, be strong, do not fear. Behold, your God will come with vengeance. With the recompense of God, he will come and save you. Okay, so we have this picture almost like it was when Israel left Egypt and they had to cross a wilderness to come into the promised land. And yet this wilderness itself supported them. Water gushed out of a rock. God fed them with manna from heaven and quail settling in the camp. The most unlikely place became a fruitful place of provision and safety for his people. And here there's this picture of God's people clearly coming out of this barren, judged earth. And they're on a journey through a difficult land, and yet they're on their way somewhere. And even as they are traveling, God is providing for them. And almost as they travel through this weary land behind them, it just it's bursting into life behind them because of their presence. That's the picture that's being drawn here. And at that time then, the eyes of the blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb sing. For waters shall burst forth in the wilderness. There's that picture of what it was like the first time God's people came through the wilderness. And streams in the desert, the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. In the habitation of jackals where each lay, there shall be grass with reeds and rushes. And clearly there's echoes of this when Jesus first comes into the world. And the eyes of the blind are then opened by him, and the ears of the deaf stopped, the lame are made whole. And there is this rejoicing where there is barrenness and sadness and hardness of life. Do you feel like your life is hard? This is the point of this devotion. We are going somewhere. We are on a journey. Jesus can break in now. He can make the eyes of the blind to see and the lame to walk and the deaf to hear. But we are walking, and we are walking a pilgrim life in the Christian life. But we are going somewhere, as we're going to see. So Jesus comes, and there's this little foretaste of what this kingdom is going to be like. And there will be a highway there, says Isaiah as he's prophesying. A highway shall be there, and a road, and it shall be called the highway of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for others. Whoever walks the road, although a fool, shall not go astray. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast go up on it. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there, and the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion. There it is, the end of this journey. They shall come to Zion with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Okay, what is God saying to us? The Christian life is not always easy. You are walking through a barren land at points, and yet, if you keep your eyes on Jesus, because who's on this highway? It is the redeemed, those who have been ransomed by our God. We are walking on a highway, and this highway is going somewhere. It is going to the heavenly Jerusalem, the Zion. Now, Hebrews chapter 12, clearly the writer of Hebrews is referring back to this poem in Isaiah, where he talks about the discipline of God and how as Christians we are to accept the discipline of God, that he disciplines those he loves, but in the end it bears the peaceable fruit of righteousness. And so the writer to the Hebrews, as with Isaiah, says here, strengthen the feeble hands and those wobbly knees. Because when God takes us through hard times in life, it is for our good. He is doing it for our good, that we may bear more fruit, that he may mature us. Are you struggling in life? Have you gone through hard times in life? Here's what God is telling you today. Strengthen your hands and your feeble knees, and keep walking along the highway of holiness. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, on that heavenly Zion where we are going, where there is an innumerable company of angels and the saints that have already died and redeemed there. That's our home. We are walking a highway of holiness to get to that place. And everything that you have to go through in this life, all the barrenness that seems to be around you, don't worry. As you are walking through this, you are leaving behind you a trail of fruitfulness, of beauty, and of revival, so that when you get to heaven, you will look behind you and you will see God has done a great thing with your life. Accept from the hand of God the struggles that you face. You don't have to understand everything. The fool will walk on this highway of holiness and will be kept safe. What do we have to do? We keep our eyes on Jesus. We keep trusting that we are clean, that we're ransomed, that we're forgiven, that we're allowed to be walking towards heaven, that heaven is our home. We are allowed on this highway, not because we are holy, but because he has made us holy. And then take sin seriously. In Hebrews chapter 12, the writer, in the same way, when he says, strengthen the feeble hands, we're going towards our heavenly home. And all of the barrenness is going to be a long lost memory when we get there. Yet, he says, don't let there be any root of bitterness. Let there not be any fornication, sexual immorality among you. Don't fall short of it. Don't stumble off the highway to holiness. Yes, there is a responsibility that we have to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, on the hope of heaven, and yet we've got to take sin seriously. And really keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus means taking sin seriously. If you take Jesus seriously, you take sin seriously, because who is Jesus? He is the one who died for sin. He's the one who went to Calvary. He shed his blood to take away sin. If you want to know how serious God is about sin, you just look at the cross and what God did to his son to deal with sin. This is what it means to walk the Christian life. So, I know there's a lot of themes I've been raising, but hopefully God is speaking to you through them. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. God is for you. God loves you. He has an incredible future for you, where all of the pain and the suffering and the frustration of this life will be washed away. You keep yourself strong in this life by keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus and the hope of heaven. And God himself will walk with you. He's disciplining you through the hardships, but he can make this desert blossom, and he can provide for you while you're on your journey. So be strengthened today. Be encouraged. God is for you, and he's with you, and he has a remarkable future planned for you. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus and take sin seriously. See you tomorrow.